I say, that Hitler he's addicted to war. People said, oh, Hitler was, all these books about Hitler being a junkie and all that. I say, Hitler's addiction was to war. He wanted war. He loved war. He called it the great cleanser. He thought war was something wonderful. And, it purged society, and the better side won, or the more sort of superior race won. And then
survival of the fittest.
Moved on in that way. And he I think, didn't really know where he was going. He was literally moving forward, but to no real end. Where was he going to end? He didn't really know where he was going to end. He didn't seem to, it was an objective without an end, is the way I see it. And also, it's like you said.
So the thousand-year Reich is that's just a phrase. That's just a catch line. It's not anything of any substance.
Because at the end of the war, what I find fascinating at the end was sometimes you find sources, that are interesting. And I liked the memoir of his secretary, Travel Young, because he has a few conversations with her right towards the end. Right towards the end, she asks him the question. She said, in the bunker, right at the end, she says, well, it's all over, isn't it, really? And she said, what do you think will happen to Nazism? And he said, Nazism's finished. It's dead. And she said, will it ever come back? He said, well, maybe in 100 years' time. He said, but it won't come back in the same form anyway. He said, we had our chance here. And he said, the German people just weren't ready for it. And he was very cynical about the German people. People have this idea of Hitler as this German nationalist, We've got to point out Hitler was an Austrian. He wasn't, he wasn't even German. And, and he also allowed for the fact that, look at the Waffen SS, where he allowed all kinds of, what he saw as Aryan people to join it. And he saw the British basically as Aryans as well, and the Scandinavian countries, like the Netherlands and Sweden and Norway. He thought they could all come and join his kind of greater German Reich. And he also said, I've only got a few years left to turn this group into the master race. And then later on in the war, you'll know this, James, he keeps saying to people like Albert Speer, they're not really up to it. And if they're not up to it, he said, they must suffer the consequences.
Well, yes, he says in his last will and testament, doesn't he? He says basically the German people have failed the test I set them. Basically tough shit.
Exactly.
Yeah. And it's not my fault.
And it's nothing to do with it's nothing to do with me. I set them the task. They failed themselves. Oh well, too bad. And it's the Jews' fault. And his view survives that late into the war is really fascinating. I mean, it's interesting though that when you said you studied him in the first book, how he operates as a politician. Yet here we are talking about how, basically the politics is essentially non-existent without him.
Exactly.
And so much. I mean, we don't believe in the great men of history anymore, but as it were, he is so central to how everything works and doesn't work. He's so central to what they're trying to do and why they fail to achieve it.